Hey, what's going on, guys? BT Gaming here, and I wanted to just drop a video here that would hopefully be helpful to you guys now and in the future. If you are playing Genshin Impact and you've come across this new mode that they've added in as of version 6, Luna 1, called the Lunar Mode. It's kind of funny how that name fits. But I was able to do this on stream. We got it done first try, but there were some things that I had to kind of do before that I think helped me to actually go in with a bit more success. So if you stay tuned, there are a couple things that I would like to mention that hopefully should be a help. I guess you could say I have about 8 things that should be a help to you guys when trying to challenge this lunar mode in Genshin Impact's endgame mode theater. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in and just give a brief TLDR about what the game modes are. So in Genshin Impact, there is a theater that is an endgame mode that allows you to kind of pull a bunch of characters together and go through this kind of modes. You battle different enemies, and there's these main enemies you go through as you progress onto each stage. Now this nets you some pretty cool rewards like primo gems. You get these cool little character traily path things and all of that. And some little character, I believe, motions and things. So there's some cool things you can earn from this game mode. Now previously, before version 6.0 or Luna 1, we had the hardest mode, which was Visionary mode. And basically it required that you had at least 22 characters that were at least level 70 or higher to be able to enter into this mode. And so that was the hardest mode. And then enter version 6 of Genshin Impact, Luna 1, and they released this new mode called Lunar. And so Lunar mode now requires you to have at least 28 characters with a max of being 32. And again, same requirements as far as they have to be level 70 or higher for them to be viewed as usable. So that's kind of the modes here going from Visionary to Lunar, and Lunar being now the hardest mode. And there's some cool rewards I believe you can earn. There's some cool trading cards, I believe. But yeah, some pretty cool things. But let's just hop into these 8 things here that we're going to take a look at, and hopefully it'll be a help to you guys. So the first thing I wanted to kind of mention to you guys is these are things that I have found along the way as I've done theater, is that when you hop into the theater and you're kind of going through to see what this current season is going to be about, make sure that before you start anything, before you actually launch off into theater, check your character's builds. Please make sure that you check to make sure each character you want to use has artifacts equipped, the right artifact sets, and also they have a weapon equipped. I cannot tell you how many times I have done this where I started theater and I get to a certain point where I'm gonna yes, as a character I've been waiting for, and then all of a sudden I'm like, yo, they're doing no damage, and I'm struggling. And when I check afterwards and I go out, I'm like, yo, my character had no artifacts, or had 2 out of 3 artifacts, or didn't have a weapon, had the wrong weapon. So please do yourself a favor and make sure you check your character builds. I know they added, I believe, in here where you can actually just check the characters and refine their builds straight in the theater menu. So do that if you need to before you launch out and then find out that, yikes, I'm stuck because my character's doing no damage. Low-key Genshin, it would be amazing if we had an artifact loadout, because switching around these artifacts is a struggle. I still, after completing this, had to switch around my artifacts, and I don't remember hardly who had what. So artifact loadouts when? Question mark. But let's jump into number 2. Number 2 is going to be that with Lunar mode, you need 28 characters. And so when I first launched this up and tried to do this, I only had 27 characters that were built to the point of being level 70 or higher. And I was like, man, I'm gonna have to build a whole other character. It's more Mora, it's more resources, talent books, yada, 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 to be able to do this. And then I realized, wait, my current character, the Traveler, counts, but in this lunar phase it was Hydro, Electro, and Geo. So my Traveler is set to Pyro. So I was like, wait a minute, they weren't counting Traveler. So I exited out, went to Leo H, and had my Traveler resonate to Geo, and then I came back. Boom, I had my 28 characters. So you can utilize Traveler if it's an iteration where you might find your Traveler usable, maybe for the early stages, right? Some of the early stages in theater are not that bad, so you can definitely plan on using your Traveler in there if you just slap some artifacts on there and just use them, as long as he's at least level 70, which honestly I think by this point hopefully your Traveler is level 70. So that's the second thing. Let's jump on to thing number 3 though. This is going to be that when you're selecting the opening characters, don't feel nervous to use the characters that they give you, right? The trial characters. That literally, when I did theater this time in Luna 1, I probably took, I think all but one of the characters were the trial characters. And for me, it worked out really, really well because there are certain characters I had that you might see in the screenshot here side by side that they were level 70, but they had like no artifacts, talents for this. And so obviously the trial characters are going to be leagues better than my unbuilt Goru, over there. And so yeah, my Aino's a new character, Aino is included. And so I went ahead and chose like their Aino. So certain characters in there, it just made sense to use the trial characters. And with doing that, you also then create flexibility to say, move around your artifacts from characters now that you can kind of distribute them more. So that is also a great benefit to using the trial characters. Again, don't be ashamed. Don't feel nervous. The trial characters do actually work. The trial Varessa, oh my goodness, she carried me. Like, it was amazing to have Varessa in this and to use Varessa. So I am super glad I had her. So the fourth thing here is, as you're setting up for your theater run, before you launch in there, make a mental note of the main bosses you're going to be facing in each major act. So in this iteration, we'll kind of see the bosses listed out here in Luna 1's version of the theater. But for the first boss here, we have the enhancer, the mech. And so kind of what I do when I do theater is I'll look through each one and see, okay, based on the elements given and like the advantages that the bosses have, what character should I plan to reserve that would give me a better chance of beating this in the time so I can get the star, because I like collecting all the stars. And so for me, when I looked at that, I was like, okay, so the mech is Geo character, has advantages when you have a Geo character. So I'd be like, you know what? I probably would like to have some Geo characters reserved for this. And so it just makes sense to do that, to have that if you need it. For the second act here, we had the Overseer, the Matrix. And again, Electro is a pretty big factor there. And so you want to make sure you probably have a decent Electro damage dealer, Electro DPS, that can help carry you as you're going up against the algorithm. The third one was the Golem as well. And he's, again, another Geo characters give an advantage. So you definitely want to make sure you have a Geo main DPS prep to be able to help you at least break through the shield, right? Because you do have the shield to deal with there, unless you have a character that can just do a bunch of damage and you can just unga bunga through the shield. Like, that's great. But for me, going into the Golem, I was like, I gotta make sure that I have Navia not burnt out, because I know I'm gonna need her at least for this. So that was something that I did to make sure I could kind of prep and be ready for the Golem, right? And then obviously the Kukusaur is kind of the final act. The final one is probably going to be the hardest boss usually that you would find in Act 10. And so for me, I was like, okay, the Kukusaur flies in the air. If you have Farina is like such a perfect character to use against a Kukusaur, because when you summon her minion, use her skill, you get her little Hydro companions, and they actually float up in the air and can do damage and break the shield to the Kukusaur. So it just makes so much sense that in your mind, you might be thinking like, okay, if I get Farina, I'm not going to use her. Or maybe you can understand that I can probably not get Farina immediately and I'll just get her down the line. So hopefully that way I can save her for the Kukusaur. So these are some things that I typically will think through as I am doing the theater, right? Kind of trying to line up the characters, the main characters I'm going to need to defeat the mechanic of the boss that I'm going to be going up against. So that would be the fourth thing. The fifth thing that we're going to be moving on to is the mystery caches, right? So as you're going through each act, don't forsake your mystery caches. They are actually really, really good to have and to use because they're free, right? And a lot of times they give you some pretty good things. You can reset vigor on some characters. And what that means is, say you have a character, you get 2 uses of a character, right? In theater, if you've done this before, I'm assuming if you're on Visionary, you probably have done the prior mode, so you understand how vigor works. But so you have 2 uses of a character for the entire duration, right? Well, the mystery cache allows you to actually reset one of those uses, sometimes 2. Sometimes you can also bring back a character that you've already used 2 uses on at random, and you might get a character that was really good. So, definitely grab the mystery caches. They're free, or they cost 40, which is relatively low. So, I mean, definitely use your mystery caches. Do not forsake them, and they will help you. Number 6 here, we want to make sure that you're paying attention to the elemental reaction buffs. Obviously you have strong characters, and so that's great, but the elemental buffs that you get from like kind of leveling up those reactions, it actually makes a big deal, and it can actually make some characters that feel lackluster perform a lot better in the theater, because now the reaction is getting buffed. And so sometimes you get things where like the reaction happens like electrocharge, and maybe like the resistance is decreased, so you get like additional damage happening. So I usually try to kind of find a couple of those reactions that will help me throughout the duration of the theater. Like this is very hydro and electro heavy, so electrocharge, just it made sense to have that, and so I maxed that one out, and I think I got like levels on the other one, but like electrocharge is a huge one to make sure that I was like, I gotta have this one. So let's moving on to number 7 though, and this is that don't feel pressured to do the lunar stage as soon as it appears, the Arcanum stages. For me, it said that the Arcana challenge will appear after participating characters consume a certain amount of vigor. I don't know how much vigor, I don't know if anybody has a number on this, but a certain amount of vigor. And for me, it was after I defeated the first boss in this one, which was the mech, it became available. Now, I did not actually do the Arcanum stage until literally right before the final act, before Act 10. Reasoning for that is you do require certain characters. You get kind of a similar thing here where there's certain mechanics you want to go up against, and we will probably show them here. You might see them on the screen, but there's certain mechanics that you do need or would like be in favor of if you should use, right? I didn't have those characters yet at that time, and I was like, I'm not going to stress because right, that Arcanum act, that lunar act stage that populates doesn't go away once you have it discovered, right? So you can do it at any point of your theater run, but make sure you do it before you do Act 10. You cannot do it after you do Act 10. Once you do Act 10, that is it. Your theater run is done, and you don't get the Lunar Arcanum stuff. So please make sure that you do that. I almost did this, and so it thankfully gives you this little message that says like, hey, just so you know, you still have your Lunar Arcanum stages you haven't done, so like you might want to do those first, right? So I think saving it until Act 10 or a later act is probably a good idea. You have more characters to choose from, so I would recommend doing that, right? And that way you can be more successful in getting your trading cards, right? And finally, the final tip I would like to say is as you're doing these different acts, don't feel bad if you have to reset. Man, I had to reset a couple times, and they're there for a reason, right? Sometimes you're going through a boss, and the characters that you get in that moment, maybe they're just not strong enough, right, to do the stage enough time to get you that star. I'm a star hunter in this, I like to be able to get all the stars and say like, oh gosh, I got it all. Like, I like that. I like that kind of stuff. And so maybe you're like, I'm struggling. I just can't quite beat the time. And so you can do a reset. It'll reset you back. And the cool thing about that is maybe you might get an event that lets you select a different element, or maybe a different random character, right? So use your resets, right? Don't be afraid to use your resets for, going back on a stage. Or the rewind, sorry, they're called the rewinds. Don't be afraid to use your rewind. And then also you can also reset some of the stuff that you get as well, as far as like the buffs, the random character selections. And sometimes you can reset and maybe even get some more mystery caches, right? So definitely use your rewinds. Don't be afraid to use your resets. And all of these things, I believe, will make you successful in completing this new iteration of Theater Lunar Mode. But guys, if anybody has any other suggestions, any other comments you'd like to make, maybe some things that you found to help you, feel free to leave them here. And man, I hope that you guys have a great time in Genshin Impact. Luna 1 has been a blast. I am enjoying it. So hopefully I will catch you guys in the next video, the next stream. Maybe when you watch this, I might be live. I'm usually live on Tuesday nights, Wednesday nights, and Fridays as well. So catch me live on Twitch, catch me live on YouTube. Otherwise, I will catch you guys in the next video. And thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch. I hope this was informative and helpful. And if you could, feel free to leave a like, leave a subscribe, leave a comment in the bottom down below. That'd be super, super helpful. The channel is growing, and I'm hoping that we can hit 500 followers or subscribers before the end of 2025. We are well on our way. I believe we can do it. And again, thank you guys so much for viewing, for taking the time, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.